2 diameter? That's freaking huge now.
Generally, we're just going to do one of the overall site plan, and then one is a floor plan of each building. Just when you're in there, it kind of gives you some indication. You're kind of early in the design, like that.
John McLeod, I'm senior designer and partner.
It's like I'm Kyle Lucas. I'm just on-site engineer.
I'm Peter. Not really rungs, whatever. Ladder bars fused to it. A few spots for safety. Basically, that's part of why it's textured on the upside too. Is it gives something if you were to fall into it. They're 4-to-1 slopes, so generally 4-to-1 with the textured gives someone a chance. But we added extra safety, kind of fused on ladder bars over that. Hopefully, that's something that never has to get tested. So these will get signed when they're up at finished grade. That's number 3. Would this be 114? I believe in that order. That, and then you'll see when we're up at the any other stuff. There's a bunch of stubs ready to go in the front chamber to kind of easily expand that. So these basically from gravel area. Through the left door is the actual screening room. We'll go in there, but you'll see it. But they're separate exterior entrances. That one's rated basically as a wet well. It's designed around being a wet well, so it's separate entrance. It's full wet well ventilation rate, gas detection in it. What else we did for? That's probably the main thing. It's a full air change rate, gas detection. Everything's explosion rated in it. So it's separate entrance. There's a light, like a beacon that goes on, that if your HMI would be alarming too if there's a gas alarm going off in there. If that alarm's going, it also strobes right there, basically saying maybe don't open that door or figure out what's going on before you open that door and go in. Better be. We generally just have 2 big channels that it's going to flow through, and primarily this is the main one. This pocket is what gets the automated screening equipment in it. So it's an automated fine carry on, and it's going to take all the other stuff out. It's got an automated screw dump into, we're going to have just like a rolling, I think it's a 3-yard or what size, but a rolling little Morris bin in here that it's going to be dumping into, and then when that's full, you just push that out the door on a little pad and have a truck come and pick it up. That out of here, that stuff's good to go to a landfill.
So just to clarify something, the washing process takes the biological pretty much completely out of it, and what comes out of it is essentially either not disinfecting, but it's
what's going in the bin.
Non-biodegradable.
Sends the bio to the cell to treat, and then takes out all the rags and everything else that you guys know is in there. So and then we have these 2 big slide gates, and they'll be grading on that side for actually operating the thing with the crank. But this will be 99% of the time wide open like it is right now, and that'll just be your primary flow channel. That gate, you'll see the plate is a little shorter. It will stay fully closed, but it's intentionally short, and it's a bypass overflow. So if something happens in this one, the screen clogs and doesn't clear, or whatever happens in here, or you just shut this one down for maintenance. If anything backs up, it'll get to the point where it overflows that one and bypasses. it still has a manual bar rake in it that's a lot coarser, so it'll still catch anything big, but it'll be bypassing and it'll make sure we're still flowing. Both of them get metered. I don't know if you can see it to the grade. If you look from over here, it gets a level sensor over it. There'll be a level sensor suspended, the point somewhere back here. Reads the level, and it follows formulas and the shapeless thing to turn that into a flow. So both channels, whether you're in your primary or your bypass, are both getting metered, and we'll have total flow coming through. Both get screened. This one's a manual course screen. I think 1 inch, forget exactly. But most of the time we'll be using the automated one. This is set up for overflow, kind of as a backup emergency. You can also, if you were shutting that one down for maintenance, you could just crank this gate up and have the primary flow through here. So that's the 2 channels. And then they meet up with, you can see it's all bagged off for the coating, but this is the recycle flow coming from operations building. And it's dosed with the initial, I'll call it alum for now, let's assume we're using alum, but alum or ferric. Gets dosed initially in that recycle line. That carries it all the way up, mixes in with the incoming flow at a high rate. It's a targeted 3-to-1 rate. So by design, we'll be recycling at a 3 times flow rate to what's typically coming in here. So that'll be pretty heavy flow. Because that'll run 24/7, so there'll always be flow in this tail end going out to the cells and kind of circulating everything. A lot of that recycle flow is for denitrification, but we're also using it as a carrier flow for the initial alum dosing to begin targeting the phosphorus removal, and then we'll get to it later, but the mixing chamber is kind of the polishing of that. That gets the next dose and then lets that settle out. You'll see the coating on these walls, which is why everything's all bagged and painted off. You can feel it at the edges. It's elastomeric coating, so should keep this stuff very slippery, pretty much invincible. And it should stop creases and fats from clinging to the wall and doing all that. And if it does, it should be easily sprayed down. Do you guys have any of this in your list? It's in 3. It's in 3. So it's the same stuff that's in list number 3, which I think you guys have had a lot of success with. So.
Yeah, it comes up really easily, like you mentioned.
Yeah, so it should stop stuff from accumulating, or help prevent it from accumulating. But when it does too, it's a lot easier to get off. It's not bonded all the concrete. So.
And it's also going to be going into lift 1 and 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So it's also in the two lift station rentals. They'll be included with it as well. So that's from inlet to basically the outlet here. And that'll be an overhead door, like I said, for getting that in and out. There's a big air handling unit will go outside. This place will probably kind of feel like a wind tunnel when you're in here, because it's at that wet well. I think it's 6 or 12 air changes an hour. 12, it's the full 12, so it'll be windy in here. But that, and then that's the explosion proof lighting and heater and stuff. Well, everything will look a little different in here because it's all wet well rated stuff. But
They look pretty heavy duty for lights, eh?
oh yeah. Those are the 2 windows. I don't know that we need to walk in that room. It's kind of just an empty room. You can probably just hear through here. This side is, you can see the electrical gear going in. It's all one open room. And then over here is just kind of, there'll be some water heaters and both bits and stuff in that side. And I think a workbench table to work at. There are labels.
Look at that, really?
Yeah. It's a lot of stuff. It's all bagged over, but yeah.
Nice.
And it's just a direct math. That's all the control system's doing, is plugging the depth H into a math formula for this particular flume and spitting out a problem. So that's all the controls are doing. So you can also do that manually.
Cool.
And it's worth doing every now and then just to make sure
Things are accurate.
controls are doing what they do.
And in theory, our lift station should equal this.
Exactly, that's the other check. You've got actual mag meters and stuff here too.
So the routine maintenance that'll be happening in this building will be what exactly?
Probably heavily around the screening equipment, which there'll be a full maintenance package from the supplier of that. Other than that, I mean, there's the air handling unit. It'll the same thing. It'll have its package maintenance stuff and ongoing with that.
So like
The idea is you guys don't have to be in here
Okay.
because it's not going to be a fun place to be. It's
So-
raw sewage. It's
Yeah,
going to be
yeah.
noisy, smelly, and like I said, you're going to be in here with 12 air changes an hour. It's
So
gonna be-
the solids removal, how often is that? We don't know how often that'll
It'll
happen.
depend. I forget what our assumptions were like. Oh, what did those
It's
say?
daily, weekly.
Like more like weekly or bi-weekly, like every 2 weeks, something like that. It was. Again, it all depends what's coming through, but
And that, we skim that manually, or how does that?
The-
how does it get removed?
removed. So
Yeah.
the automated step screen will be handling it.
Okay.
And it eventually comes out. It's a sausage caser.
Okay.
For lack of a better term, it's exactly that. It automated dumps and it just goes up, and it's just constantly falling into a bin. I think we put an automated bagger on this, so the end of that chute, it'll be dumping into a big plastic bag instead of just raw into the bin.
Okay.
And it'll just sausage caser. It'll just keep going, and then so you guys can monitor it and come poke your head in here every 3-4 days, maybe if you want, and just make sure it's not over top in the bin. And then whenever you want, go in there, pinch off and tie off the bag so it can keep going, and wheel that bin out and get rid of it, and then keep going. And I think our estimates are like weekly or every 2 weeks maybe. It's not expected to be crazy. It's a 6mm screen, so it's going to be grabbing pretty much everything. So it depends what's coming through, but it's going into a decent sized, like 3 or 4 yard bin. So one of those things we won't know for sure till it's running, but it's not going to be a daily thing. That is, I think we can say that pretty certain. It's not even a 1, 2, 3 day thing. We're expecting more like, I would think, a week at the quicker end. So.
And it could change with the season too, like during the winter, it might be every 2 weeks, during the summer, it might be every week.
Good if you get
Yeah, and certainly most places find that as you get into spring melt and your sewage flows start to pick up, that's when you'll see a little bit.
some of those flushing flows will flush
Flushing
much
flow.
more.
Probably very similar to what you see in your stations.
Yeah.
Joanna show up?
Yeah.
Nipples to lubricate. The majority of the moving part of it, the bearings and whatnot, are actually out of the heavy part of the flow. So they're a little bit easier to service. It's a linkage that kind of dips down and comes back up.
We deliberately went with one that doesn't have the bearings down the bottom. Some of them do. Some of them are like a big chain thing, so they have a bearing. The other, it'll have a hoist right here that swings to it. The whole thing it's hinged up here, so you'd be able to swing the hoist over, hook a chain on its lifting lug, and just pull it, and it just swings up out of the flow, so you can actually deal with it not in the flow. And that will also swing this way and do the exact same thing for the manual one. You'll have to pick it up. Say that if you're using this and the manual is just catching too much, you guys have to do it all the time. You could just lift it up and not swing it, but just fire it through. That's how your current living goes. So that will be here, and that helps a lot with any of the routine maintenance. That's why that does that. You can just pick it up, you can inspect, you can. If you got something caught in a blade or whatever, you just hoist it out, and that way you're not having to close the gate and try and wash it off. And we got hose bibs to try and wash it. The other one thing we're trying to do, we included it just because we think it will help. Over all of this grading, we're putting just like thin kind of industrial rubber matting. The idea being hopefully to keep some of the smells just in the channels moving along and the water flow carrying it out. It's obviously sanitary, but that's gonna cover these with a mat, so that half seals it, and it should help that way. And if it doesn't, they're just loose mats and pull them off or whatever. But
The wash down for the screener uses hot water to try
Yeah.
and reduce the amount of grease and stuff that's hot.
yeah. Uses hot water, and that also I think we're a tankless unit up here. We'll go flow.
I think so.
But it keeps, by using the hot water here, it keeps a constant flow through the water here, which is good for it instead of the odd time you use a hot water tap here and the tank sits unused for months. So it'll put a steady flow through that, which will also turn over it's a potable supply too up here. So we'll also turn that over too. So when you are using it up here, it's not stagnant water that's been in the line for a month. So.
Yeah, and I guess just to finish that thought off, it's a very long supply line, all the way down, lift 3 all the way to out to here. So one of the reasons that we're doing that, with doing the washing with potable, is to make sure that there's a continual usage of water out here, so that it's always through. So
And it's
you're not having to waste or run a tap just to get a chlorine residual out here.
And I forget off the top of my head what those flows are. It's not a massive water usage because it's just going in a high pressure nozzle, and it just, once it's full, it runs it for 30 seconds or something like that, and at a high pressure and lower flow. And it was, I forget what the targeted usage was, but it wasn't a massive amount. So.
It would go every 2 years. So it is going to be a bit of a regular piece. And the reason it's so frequent is we want to catch it when it's only about 10% full, so that we maintain maximum effectiveness of that cell, and we're resuspending as little phosphorus out of it as possible. Because your phosphorus limit now is going to be very, very low.
And that's, like Sean said, that's at the 20-year design.
Yeah, that's
so.
10,000.
long before all of us have ever.
Yeah, exactly. So early years will be a whole lot less than that.
Right.
Mixes with the big recycle flow in that chamber, kind of swirls around, and it comes out together in this, and this is all sloped down to the 2 cells. So this is obviously common flow through here, with all the yellow grading is like pedestrian grading, I guess you should call it.
Yep.
Flows through, and then it splits evenly to the two aerated primary cells, with the option to isolate. So normally you'd have both these open, it's even feed, these run in parallel, collect at the end and keep going. If you need to get into one, you need to desludge it or draw it down or do anything with the aeration for any reason, you just crank these gates down. They have a pretty massive mechanical advantage, so they move pretty slow. But they go fully up and down, fully seal. When they're fully seated, you might see the tiniest bit of drip flow through. They have a little bit loud, but honestly with the head on these only being that much, it's probably not gonna see that. You'll see the change in color of grading and bar spacing. The gray is vehicle rated and heavy vehicle rated, so thinking when hydrovac trucks or anything needs to come through here, there'll be, when this is actually finished, there'll be bollards or jersey barriers kind of protecting vehicles from accidentally driving on the one that they'd fall through. But this is high load rated grading, so mainly keeping a driving lane around all berms and through everything, so you can drive around wherever you need to. And then again, since it will all be at grade, we're putting jersey barriers up just so nobody accidentally drives over that, or if it's snow covered in the rain, we don't accidentally forget and fall into a trench. The cells themselves, if you know what you're looking for, you can see a little stake at the far end. There'll be a clean out on that side, and then that all ties in with weeping tile through to, I think where that red stake is a manhole. So it's basically, it's an under drain system. The reason it's there is geotech, give or take, the groundwater table is right at the bottom of these cells. We're obviously in really dry years, the past several. But if that groundwater to come up with a lined, geomembrane lined cell, if your water level in your cell goes down, you could start to whale back the liner. So we have an under drain system. Basically, it's not needed to be used for anything unless you're drawing these cells right down to empty. You'll probably want to, the idea being you pop the manhole and drop like a trash pump or a transfer pump of some kind and draw it up.
You have to treat that as potentially changing to come back.
Yeah, you probably, if you're trying to draw one or anything, you probably overland and pump into the next cell and exactly in case because it can be used if there's any suspect leaks down the road. That's another point to draw and test from, right? And you can see, is this groundwater, is this actual lagoon? It'll also, in theory, kind of, the level in the manhole could give you a good idea of where groundwater is too. Like that manhole will always have, expected to always have some water in the bottom because it's direct tied to that. So that would give some indication of groundwater level too. But other than that, probably not something you really need to worry about. So.
They're sucking from Carl Chan, that's why the hydrant by
So the water kind of sits somewhere.
Yeah, so the FSL of the cell is gonna be back in here. Yeah, so when it's normally flowing, it'll be hitting the water level of the cell somewhere, probably in about where we're standing, and kind of jump into the energy transfer there, and then this the liner will all be this is HDPE embedded. So the liner is going to come and fuse right to this and seal it tight all the way around. So that's what that is.
And that's on the bottom too, right?
Yeah, it loops. You'll see it on the face. Okay. Well, it's probably a little dirty, but yeah.
Yeah, let's chip it away.
Yeah. So that lets them butt it up.
Do we ever have to worry about that?
That will give it room to either settle or
Come up or down, just a little bit of.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Okay.
So the membrane, the HDPE is very sensitive to heat, elongation and stuff. So when they install it, they have to leave a proper slack. It'll look different in the winter and in hot summer days, and even a 40-degree day to a 10-degree night. You'll see different wrinkles and stuff in it. But the idea being most of the energy is dissipated in the concrete channel, and then it's just kind of just meets the water level in there. So.
What are the slopes of these?
4 to 1.
4 to 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
And are we 3 to 1 on the backside? I'd have to look. Interior for sure is 4 to 1. Exterior might be 3 to 1. We might have went 4 to 1. I think we stayed 4 to 1 for mowing. So
Yeah.
3 to 1 you can mow on, but it's less comfortable.
It is. It's kind of the limits, isn't it?
Ferric or alum dose in the recycle to hit at the headworks, get some initial phosphorus removal up there. Then it gets out of the primaries, comes here, and it gets its second dose, which is for the polishing to get it down. You guys have a real low limit, and that's what this will do. And then all of that chemical flock will settle out through these long cells. You'll see different to the front too. These have 2 pipes at the end. That's their outlet, and it's just to split the outlet flow. So we're just getting really slow plug flow through that whole long cell, and even hole from each side at the end. We're actually discharging to it in this corner, so we added the far one to again try to get some flow to go diagonal across instead of just riding the sperm. But long, ideal shaped cells for really slow plug flow that should let it all settle out. blowers that are doing the primaries and the saggers. So there's no mechanical mixers or anything to maintain or really have to do anything out here. There's the arrow come in and come to diffuser heads, which will be the same type that's in the primary cells. There's a wall kind of between these two openings. That side of it is rapid mix. This longer side is secondary mix. Feed separately. They'll have an isolation gate if you ever need to close them off. And the two split. Each have an isolation gate. Idea being, ideally you have all 4 cells going, but you can kind of think of them as 2 trains. Primary A and secondary A could run together, and you could isolate off the other train. You need to do maintenance, you need to get into one cell, or you could do both primaries into one secondary, or one primary into one secondary. You'll have all the gates to do whatever split flow might be needed, but generally speaking, all 4 will be running all the time.
So the average flow, each cell can do average flow at the time.
Yeah.
So maybe not the worst of your summer, but early in your spring, late in into the fall, you can run everything theoretically comfortably through to one project.
You should have the redundancy there if you ever had to run it. You shouldn't have to go on any special permission from WSA or anything. You should still be meeting targets. Especially, again, all of this is designed for 10,000 people, right? So with some I'll also open this one. You can see.
So while he's doing that, the reason for this big structure is even flow, even feed to the saggers is super critical. So this whole structure basically takes the flow from both of these, lines it, and then splits it evenly between all of them.
And you'll see, you'll see that plywood's covering a drop pipe that feeds the cell. So these two would go to sagger number 1, the closest to the building. So there's a short wall between its 2 feeds, tall wall to the next 2 feeds. This face will get adjustable metal plates so we can set the height of them. That'll generally get set and should never need to be touched, but they will be adjustable if you ever had to. And that'll feed evenly into the 2 feeds off to it. Same thing in the next one all the way along. That's really the main thing this one's doing. This will have to the grading, and then it'll get insulation over the top. We went with that just to try to prevent it. It's probably going to want to frost up a bit and stuff in the winter, so just decided to cover it in to be safe that way. If you look in this side, the first thing the flow hits is this little chamber. It's a screen. Mainly we don't want anything going into that drop pipe to the sagger because you're never going to see it again. So if we have a ton of stuff, logs, whatever going there, you might have problems down the road. Generally we don't want much going into the saggers. So we put a coarse screen. These are honestly, we shouldn't see much coming into these cells, but ducks or beavers or something that tries to swim through that pipe would get stuck in here and at least not go into the sagger. Yeah. Behind that is, that's what the stem is a water gate. So again, that will set the level of the entire system, all 4 cells really. So you set out these 2 water gates, you'll generally set them the same level. That's going to back up all 4 of those cells. So these are really your control point for the depth in all of these. Same thing if we're trying to isolate a drain, make sure it gets irrigated up. So everything will overflow the other one first. So this will isolate, and that's what your isolation gates. I haven't heard for sure, but there's a good chance that those are good for a lot more than 10,000.
I know in the past we were talking about 40 years.
When this valve's open, that's primary feed. So sometime late summer. I don't know when they do that, Sean, but it kind of depends.
It varies a little bit, either late August.
Yeah, so
late September.
call it late August. You come out, you close that valve and open the secondary valve. Now you're feeding, trying to grow that inner biomass. And then you have a way larger biomass that brings you to the winter, no problem. And then spring you go back to primary feed. If you have them both open, why you just too low to grow? Or?
So if you feed them both at the same time, you're only making half the biomass in each spot. So you're still enough only with one. Okay. There's only enough food to grow one biomass. So when you feed the second one, you grow a new set of biomass. The first one goes into a bit of a starvation, but for the period that we do that, it's okay.
Yeah.
So you grow the second biomass for about a month, and then you go back to the primary feed, and then because it works like somewhere between 25 and 50% as well at low temperatures, then you've got more carrying through to the second level. And these will primary and that. Yeah, you go back. You feed the secondary for about a month, and then you go back to the primary. You'll see. So these are lined HDP, same as the Lagoon style here. That is, and then it's all lined with geotextile, just a protective fabric, so that the rock isn't right on crescent. And then it all gets backfilled as they fill. The wood walls are sacrificial. Obviously over 20, 30 years in the ground, they'll rot away to nothing. But you're basically left with a bathtub of HDP liner and dirt, and that's multiple rock. So the walls eventually, they're designed to be sacrificial, they just rot away, but they need them there to initially build it. These will last till the end of this particular part of the system, and you'll have something different. I think there was something like 1.5 kilometers of wood wall framing on this. They're 90 meters long by 22 wide, so that's like 230 meters of formwork per cell, and there's 6 of them.
Yeah, this is.
Generally, that'll probably be your main entrance, that door in the hallway. This is the first room, this is the office. This will have your, just basically desk and computer and cupboards and whatever else you want to use it for. This will have the computer with the SCADA on it. Generally, sort of approached, whether you guys fully switch to an operation or not, this is generally approached from design to kind of be the public works hub building now, so wanted to leave enough space for that. It'll have the SCADA that's going to tie in the lift stations and kind of, and the water plant, kind of be the central hub. Obviously those stations will still have their side of it too, but general office, that approach is the main entrance, so through some windows you can see who's coming to the gate and coming and going from site. these windows let you see headworks and just kind of what's going on. That'll all be the gravel kind of for a second too. That right beside us is the lab. You'll see it's just got more counter space, a sink, stuff like that. That'll be where you're doing jar testing or anything like that kind of idea in there, like a fridge and stuff like that. So you can keep it separate to the office in case you got noisy stuff running in there or people doing tests. You can be separate to the guys in here. I don't think there's anything else fancy in these two. They're just kind of front two rooms. Turn around out there, pull up the side, and unload here. They'll just be able to open the door and look at the tanks they're filling to make sure you don't, whatever, make sure you see what's going on. That wall will also have the valves. They can direct it to fill any of the 3 tanks that they want. Generally all the valves, pipes, level measurement over there, and a direct connection. They can see inside of what they're doing. And if something does rupture, you can't see it because of the tarp, but there's a sump down there that you can pump out of if you ever had to clean it up and then hose it down. Same thing, it all slopes to the sump to make a collection point. Other than that, up here will be your dosing panels and things like that. There's the level actually, so that'll be outside over there. So that's what the delivery guys can see. Then they should also ideally have the door open, looking at the tanks, making sure.
I saw some tanks outside. Are those the chemical
Those
tanks?
are the 3 chemicals.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're just white poly tanks that'll be in there, and all connecting piping and everything, so you can draw from any of them. Fill any of them. That big hole, either to cell 6 or to the lake, and there's space for a 3rd one for future flows. And then these are the recycle pumps. Same thing. There's 2 of them now. Space for a 3rd one for future flows. You'll see its header, so this is what goes to headworks. This is that big line that comes in headworks and then the recycle flow. This little stub off is what's going to send to the mixing chamber. So it peels off, it gets dosed in the chemical room, and then it goes down and out, carries that chemical to the mixing chamber, and does that ferric dosing out there. FO1, same thing, will go down in the chamber and get split either with automated valves, either with cell 6 or with the lake, and that'll be automated. In general, we'll call it an ideal world. Let's say cell 6 is getting irrigated out of, and we want to prioritize that. This system's gonna, when this cell rises enough that it needs to discharge, it's gonna look for cell 6 first. If cell 6 is full, it's gonna look to do gravity flow to the lake. So there's a gravity overflow to the lake that we're anticipating that the open years, probably all we're gonna need. We probably aren't gonna have to pump. It's gonna have enough head to just go to the lake by gravity. We'll save all that pumping cost, which would be great. If it gets to the point where the gravity can't keep up, if the level keeps rising, it'll close the gravity valve, open the pump valve, and fire up the pumps, and send it to the lake. So, control-wise, the only option to say, don't really look at cell 6. Or MCC run of, it's like 6 feet wide or something, but this big one, this will be the big control panel. This is what has the PLC in it. I don't know if they've. Yeah, they've got some stuff going on. Basically, this is all your MCC gear. You shouldn't have to be in your off, and again, it's all going to the SCADA computer. So where your actual HMI will be. Other than just a crazy amount of expensive gear, the only thing I'd comment in here is we've split it up a little bit sub-fed, the 2 different MCC lineups. So we've tried to put, for example, you have 2 effluent pumps. We've tried to put 1 on each MCC run, same with recycle pumps, same with blowers, split them up so that if you have to do maintenance on one panel and shut it off, you still have 1 of each of those pumps. You don't have to shut down recycle, you don't have to shut down blowers. At the very least, you can keep some of them going, so you don't even really have to worry about treatment, even if you had to shut this down for several days to do something.
Other than that, it's just gonna look like your electrical rooms and all your other stations. It's just got a lot more in it, and it's, like I said, I think it's like $1.2 million of gear in here or something like that. It's an insane amount.
Massive.
You'll see the blowers. There's a whole bunch of 100 horse VFDs in here, which is some of the massive stuff. Huge harmonic filters because of that.
Way more than the left.
Yeah. Safe to walk around, yeah. So you can see some of the size and conduit that's got to go up and feed too because of all that. So yeah. I think we're. I want to say we're 1,200 up here. So it's terrible to ask them. Common standby. So you'll see the piping header interconnect. So they kind of share a standby. The idea instead of having two expensive standbys. So generally, Sagers, all three of those. Lagoon air in it. You throw another blower here. If you add those extra Sagers, which is unlikely to be needed, another blower can go here, and the piping headers are all set up to just keep them stunning too. This